So le pronom I, very useful. The pronouns are very useful, aren't they? Why are they useful? Because you don't want to keep on repeating it and repeating what you're saying. You want to actually just use something it or there to replace the first thing you introduce. So let's have a look at how we use I, because I know that a lot of people feel a bit uncomfortable with it. I think one of the ways that you use I as a pronoun is really, really straightforward. And the other one takes a little bit of thought, but it's not too difficult. And let's have a look at why that is. So, vous allez à Rome en train? Non, j'y vais en avion. So, are you going to Rome by train? No, I'm going there. So here, I means there. And we've got J apostrophe. So that's good to hear that, J, because that J, when you're listening, you might think, well, what is that? That's a J apostrophe Y there. I'm going there on a plane. Because you don't have to keep saying, vous allez à Rome en train. Non, je vais à Rome en avion. Ah, tu vas to blah, blah, blah. You know, you want to just place it with there, don't you? So I think that's nice and neat, really, quite straightforward. I think that's the one that's straightforward, is where I means there. Nice and simple. And I know you always say, oh, you always say that. It's not simple. But I think this one is. I accept that the other one takes a little bit more thought. So, I remplace des compléments de lieu. So, I is replacing places. Let's look at some more examples. So, Paul va à Lyon. Paul's going to Lyon. Il y va en voiture. He's going there by car. Sorry, so il y va, so il y va, so the I is covering the à Lyon. So you can drop the à all together, and then you've got the name of the place. So you're dropping all of that and just replace it with the I. And where does the I go? Well, if you look at this example up here, it's just in front of the verb. So between the subject, the person, and the verb. And then you just drop it in, just drop it in there, nice and easy. So, il y va en voiture. Anne habite à Athènes. We don't want to keep saying Athènes, we want to say she lives there. So, elle y habite depuis un an. So, she's been living there for a year. Again, just dropping it in front of the verb, that's the verb habiter. There. Je suis chez moi. I'm at my house. J'y suis jusqu'à 6 heures. I'm here until 6 o'clock. So again, dropping the E just in front of that verb there. So I'm sure you all agree with me, that's straightforward, isn't it? Not a lot to think about there. Now, the one that we have to think about a little bit more is where we're using E after verbs that have a preposition after them, a. And we're going to use it not to talk about people, but to talk about things. So les choses, de choses. So things that we don't want to have to keep repeating. So let's look at some examples, best ways. So, je pense à. Now the a is in bold here because the verb is not penser, just penser. The verb is penser à quelque chose. And penser à means to think about something. Okay, so je pense à mon pays. I'm thinking about my country. And then somebody else is saying, I'm thinking about it too. And what they're saying, so because of the a, we're not going to use le, la, or les as pronouns. We're going to use I as our pronoun. So we're going to talk this whole of this à mon pays is replaced by that tiny little letter I. And it's the same logic. We're still putting it in front of the verb, and we've still got a J apostrophe when we've got two, obviously two vowels together. So je pense à mon pays. À mon pays, block, becomes I that we just drop in front of our verb. J'y pense moi aussi. So I'm thinking about it as well. Je participe à ce projet. The important thing is the verb participer. It's not just participer by itself. It's participer à, to participate in. It doesn't mean that always when you have an a, it means in, but in this case it does, because here I'm thinking about, doesn't it? So the prepositions between languages, and this isn't just unique to English and French, very rarely line up. So prepositions, un, deux, de, sur, those kinds of things, they very rarely line up across languages. We just have to accept that, I'm afraid. So je participe à ce projet. So I'm taking part in this project. J'y participe aussi. I'm taking part in it as well. So the à ce projet is dropped in just in front of the verb and becomes y. Je m'intéresse à la politique. So if you want to say you're interested in something, you've got a reflexive verb here. It doesn't matter, it's a reflexive verb, but the important thing is that it's got an a. So s'intéresser à is to be interested in something. So je m'intéresse à la politique, I'm interested in politics. Je m'y intéresse aussi. I'm interested in it as well. And what you could do is if you were just starting out with this and you wanted to just sort of like do some baby steps, you could just remember those three and try to use them when you're speaking. So say something and then say, ah, j'y pense moi aussi. I'm thinking about it too. Can't be that hard to drop that into a sentence. J'y participe aussi. If somebody introduced that they're doing something, say, oh, I do that as well. So I take part in that as well. J'y participe aussi. Just to get used to saying it and getting the sound of it. And then this one, je m'y intéresse aussi. I'm interested in that as well. Just getting into the sort of like the rhythm and the sound and feeling confident of that. Okay. Now that was talking about, so the first one was about place. The second one is about things. Now, when we're talking about people, we're actually going to have to keep the a in there. Notice that? So, je pense à Paul. I'm thinking about Paul. Je pense à lui. I'm thinking about him. Je m'intéresse à Paul. I'm interested in Paul. Je m'intéresse à lui. So we can't use e for people. We can use it for places and for things. I'm going to skip the next bit because that's not really what I want to focus on. I want to focus on e. Now, there's some common expressions when we use e, and you could just even memorize these if you wanted to, just to be able to start hearing yourself say that sound. So, Paul est connaisseur en vin. Il s'y connaît. Paul is a wine connoisseur. He knows about it. Now, if you say je m'y connais or il s'y connaît, it's like they're an expert, really knows about it. And it's very often actually connected with wine. You know, it's being knowledgeable, really knowledgeable about something. If you say je m'y connais, then you should really know about whatever subject that is you're talking about. Je ne suis pas responsable. I'm not responsible. This is just an expression you could learn if you wanted to just put your hands up and take no responsibility whatsoever. Then je n'y suis pour rien. Je n'y suis pour rien. Leave the hands up in the air in defense. Je n'y suis pour rien. I'm for nothing. It's not me. It's the other guy. Okay. N'oubliez pas de passer demain. Don't forget to come by tomorrow. This verb passer is really, really malleable, really flexible, used for loads of things. In this phrase, it means don't forget to come by to my house tomorrow or my office or wherever you're going to meet me. Now, this, you could remember this one. You don't have to work out the complexities of it, just remember it. Je n'y manquerai pas. I wouldn't miss it. It's like, I wouldn't miss it for the world. Yes. Je n'y manquerai pas. There you go. You could just chuck that in, couldn't you? I could say at the end of your class, à la semaine prochaine. And you could say, je n'y manquerai pas, just to practice if you wanted to. Yes. Voilà, this is a great one. Voilà, ça y est, c'est fini, on peut partir. You hear this an awful lot. Ça y est, it's done. Finished. Ça y est. Doesn't even sound like it's spelt really. It's said so quickly normally. Ça y est, c'est fini. Voilà, ça y est, c'est fini. So that's done. Again, you could probably put that in somewhere, couldn't you? I know I don't put that in very often in your classes, but I should do really. So it's all done. We can go now. But you might, someone says to you, I've made a decision. I'm going to move to Australia. Ah, ça y est, c'est fait. Oh, you finally made the decision. That kind of thing. So where do we use the e when we're in a negative, so in a negation? So it says, now this is where we get a little bit of a pain. because it can be in front of or behind. Let's have a look. So, il n'y va pas. So, the important thing to remember with negatives when you're using pronouns, because I is a pronoun, is that the ne and pas will be always all the way around, envelop the whole thing. You're never going to get a pronoun outside of the ne pas, and the ne pas has got to go around the verb as well. So that rule stays the same. And we're just dropping that I in again, just in front of the verb, aren't we? So that's not too complicated. What does that mean? Il n'y va pas. What's that mean? He's not going. He's not going there. Il n'y en a plus. It's a bit of an expression there. Il n'y en a plus. So we've got an en in there as well, which is another pronoun. Il n'y en a plus is there aren't any more. There's no more of it. I won't go into the details of that. And then we notice that the I on this one is going after the M, which we saw, didn't we, up here. We already saw here. You might have noticed it. So, je ne m'y intéresse pas. The ne pas got to go all the way around, but the whole block with the pronoun stays in there. Right, let's just have a quick look at an exercise or two to see if it makes sense. So this is about place, this one. So, vous restez à Genève 2 ou 3 jours? Are you staying in Geneva 2 or 3 days? And that makes sense to you? J'y reste 2 jours. I'm staying there for 2 days. Okay. Vous êtes à Paris pour 1 ou 2 ans? How would you reply to that? Vous êtes à Paris pour 1 ou 2 ans? I would say j'y suis pour 2 ans. J'y suis pour 2 ans. I'm just using the same verb, by the way, that I heard in the question. J'y suis pour 2 ans. Okay, so I've just done the same thing, dropped it in. Let's have a look. I'm just going to jump to the next one. Je vais à la piscine à 16 heures. Et vous? I'm going to the swimming pool. It's at 4 o'clock. And you? J'y vais aussi à 16 heures. I'm going there as well at 4 o'clock. Are they all? They're all examples of there. Oh, there's no examples there with the preposition behind it. All right, let's just have a quick look again at the preposition again. So we know the there. And then let's just go back and look at the preposition again. When I say the preposition, that's the a. So try and associate those two letters, I and a, Y and A, if you can. The preposition a will set off I. So, je pense à mon pays. Notice, j'y pense moi aussi. And then notice that that's the whole of that, mon pays. Je participe à ce projet. That makes sense. J'y participe aussi. The Y is taking up the whole of à ce projet. And the last one here, je m'intéresse à la politique. We've got à la politique. And we dropped in there, je m'y intéresse aussi. So, I, very, very useful pronoun. Get used to using it for there, straightforward. Maybe try out some, just use these examples perhaps, just to get used to start using it. And then you've got a few expressions down here as well that you could use just to get used to it. Wonderful. Vous êtes superbe. Merci beaucoup d'être venu. Et puis, à bientôt. Merci, au revoir. Au revoir.